We'll move on. Speaking of transformation, a perfect segue to our next keynote speaker. We're going to hear about how businesses can successfully transform and adapt in this digital and information age. And our next speaker brings a wealth of experience to this topic. Mr Ron Gauci, he's the Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Information Industry Association. Ron's a leader of the ICT industry with significant experience in senior leadership and executive roles in both ASX and New York listed global multinational organisations, including ones you might have heard of, such as Microsoft, Siebel, Telstra, IBM, and others. He's widely recognised as a transformation specialist and has delivered success despite significant challenges and adversity, which hopefully we'll hear some of here. He's a former national director of the AIIA as well, and its current CEO. And most notably, Ron has also held significant roles outside the industry, including interim positions as CEO at Federation Square, Melbourne Storm, and the Melbourne Polytechnic. So a lot of experience in the area of information and transformation. Let's hear the second keynote of the day from Ron Gauci. Thanks, Ron. You might be on mute there, Ron. Can others hear Ron?
Can you hear me now? Okay.
We can now, I think.
Very good. Okay.
Hopefully everyone else can too. Thanks, Ron.
Disconnect on their headphones. So now thanks for the introduction, and it's good to listen to the other speakers as well. So hopefully I can provide some context with the other speakers as well. But let's, given the time, let's go through the slides. I'll just ask you to move on. So just by way of introduction, the AIIA is recognised as the only industry association that covers the complete depth and breadth of the entire ICT sector. We have organisations that are multinationals right down to one-person organisations, and we also cover everything from security, telecommunications, etc. So depth and breadth is certainly there. The talk today, I've been asked to give you an insight into the landscape of Australia's technology sector, key trends and the opportunities that I see. So given the role of the association and the organisations we deal with, I think I can give you some of that insight. Next slide, thank you. So I thought I'd give you some context. I'm a context person. So by way of context, whilst by ranking from a GDP perspective, we're ranked at number 6 and a substantial contribution to Australia's economy as well. The reality is that our ICT sector actually impacts every other industry, whether it's mining tech, manufacturing, fintech, health, biotech, etc. So one of the exciting things about our industry is that whilst we are a very big industry in itself and our contribution is quite substantial, it is also playing a significant part in the growth of other sectors as well. The interesting thing is if we actually take global organisations and also other countries around the world, you will find that in fact if we were to invest more significantly in the ICT sector, we could be twice the size that we are today in terms of our contribution to Australia's GDP. And I think that's an opportunity. Next slide, thank you. This is a perspective from an employment view, if you like. This slide highlights the size of the Australian ICT workforce and the employment opportunities that exist inside our industry. Clearly, whether you are a young person looking to join an exciting industry with many diverse opportunities across a wide range of industries, we just heard about the technology in the trucking industry, supply chain logistics as an example. So we do having an ICT background creates opportunities across every other sector as well. Now, whether you want to be upskilled or cross-skilled, there's plenty of scope and opportunity in our sector, obviously. And depending on which report you read, you'll find that there are anywhere between 100 and 250,000 opportunities and career opportunities in our sector across security, digital, and I'll come back to that point in a moment. Next slide, thank you. Again, by context, as a result of the COVID situation, the AIIA recently released a white paper on building a digital future in the post-COVID world, which covers 4 recommendations, and I won't go into all of those now, but the paper is currently being socialised from the offices of the Prime Minister and the state premiers and their respective cabinets, who are now working with the AIIA to explore what we call click-ready projects to stimulate our economy through digitisation. There is a commitment to the principles that sit within the white paper, and let me emphasise the opportunity, I guess, by referring to history. Almost exactly 100 years ago, we came out of World War I, and we went straight into a pandemic, the Spanish flu, which actually killed 50 million people around the world. We had at that same time also provided electricity to homes around Australia, and having electricity in our homes created a whole new opportunity for white goods and manufacturing of and use of. And what we found is that we went into the 20s and the roaring 20s from an economic boom perspective. Here we are 100 years later, not too dissimilar. Thanks to NBN, we now have digitised homes. We have technology to the homes, and we're seeing the growth of retail tech and health tech and other areas, which I'll talk about in a moment. But what it highlights is that we probably have a good opportunity now with the digitisation of our homes to actually grow our economy and, in fact, transform our entire economy and become more resilient and more independent. Thank you. Next slide. So where are the key sectors with critical needs? You can read the slide. Manufacturing, health, agriculture, and energy are all there. But interestingly, all of those are underpinned by technology. And again, I'll come to those. Next slide. Thanks. Advanced global economies are all heavily investing in science and technology to lead the productivity growth, which is clearly an opportunity in Australia, with a heavy reliance on the importance of skills and capability. However, this is not necessarily backed by the incentives on offer for R&D investment, and one of the things that the AIIA is pushing for is a better incentive regime to promote investments, particularly in our SME sector. We have magnificent small organisations and innovators that require support from our economy, and we think there's a better way of doing that as well. Next slide. Thank you. So where are the emerging opportunities within the sector? Clearly AI, security and automation are creating real opportunities for employment, and career choices in each of these impact other industries as well. So if you today have cybersecurity expertise or AI expertise, the reality is you can apply that in pretty much every other industry sector as well. So these are very, very transportable skills that we currently have a real shortage of in Australia. Thank you. So next slide, let's go to the heart of the trends then. So I've picked those trending industries that are showing real opportunity going forward. We heard earlier from Will Irving's presentation, there's no question that telehealth is a massively growing opportunity, as it should be and should have been for some time now. More and more of us are using that during the COVID-19 period, and that's escalated the opportunity here as more and more people adopt this approach to getting access to health services. Next slide, thank you. So everyone on this call has been engaged in probably a retail transaction since we've been in lockdown in COVID. Retail growth has grown rapidly, and that's been reflected on the ASX. The likes of JB Hi-Fi, etc., has shown significant growth on the back of the growth in the retail opportunity. That then also goes to what you've also heard from the other speakers around the supply chain logistics and the opportunity around the whole logistics sector as well. So I think that it is what you've heard earlier, that there is a lot of substance to the growth opportunity that's created. Thank you. Likewise, teleworking has new meaning, with many organisations now making the decision to continue the benefits of working from home. And some companies have said that they don't expect their workforce to come back for the next 12 months. We also know that beyond that, there's an opportunity now to blend home and office working once we get back to some sort of normality, whatever that looks like. Post-COVID, this is likely to continue to be a high percentage, and many sectors, as our experience has shown, that will continue to work from home. Next slide, thank you. Depending on, again, I said earlier, depending on which report you read, we currently have probably a shortage of around 250,000 jobs in our sector, and the reality is that that number is growing. We expect that to double probably in the next 5 years. Thank you. Given Australia's exposure to natural disasters, this is another important area of growth and opportunity to focus on delivery, solution delivery. Billions of dollars are being spent on research to identify solutions, and we are a country that has droughts and floods in the same cycle, depending on where you are in our country. Next slide, thank you. And then, of course, there's the AI play. If European trends are an example, AI poses to be a significant opportunity to be a producer rather than a customer in the AI space, and that's a really important distinction. Next slide, thank you. So by way of an example, I mentioned the opportunity in agri-tech earlier. The CSIRO has made great progress through its investments in R&D in this space. We're seeing AI hubs appearing on the ICT landscape, and I can confirm that the AIIA is in discussion to bring together a cohort of industry players to escalate our expertise in the area of AI and to develop commercialised products and services that we can take to a global market. Thank you. So in summary, therefore, the key opportunities in our industry are skills, digitisation, supply chain and AI, as well as obviously security is becoming more and more prevalent in our economy. Because every industry and every person is impacted by technology in some way, we do need to build the capacity and a capability to deliver so that we can strengthen our economy to enable us to be less dependent on external market movements, more resilient as we confront a new post-COVID challenge. And all the experts are saying that post-COVID, there'll be other challenges and maybe even other pandemics. So how do we build up that resilience and independence? And we believe that investment in technology now will assist us with that. So we can become producers, not consumers. So that's, I think, the last slide from me. Yes, thank you. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Daryl. I was hoping I'd pick up some time for you by whipping through that quickly. So
you've done brilliantly, Ron, and you've got us right back on schedule. I'll just ask Tyler if any questions have come in.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Daryl. First off, what do you reckon has been the best government-led ICT investment program in terms of resulting in actual jobs and CAPEX growth in the ICT industry that you have seen around the world?
Well, I'll talk domestically first. We're now starting to see a real emphasis on digitisation and a digitised economy. So I think it'd be fair to say that New South Wales, Service New South Wales has led the way in terms of a digitised economy, and their investments have been quite substantial in the billions of dollars, and they've transformed the way that the public sector actually deals with the taxpayer and with the consumer. We're also seeing around the country now a focus on digitisation, including having digital ministers. So we were very delighted to hear recently that Jala Pulford was appointed Minister for our digital economy, and we think that's a real step forward for Victoria. We're seeing around the country stimulus packages led by technology. South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, etc., are actually showing the way, and the federal government, obviously through the likes of Karen Andrews, Stuart Robert, and what's happening in those departments, and the budget allocation towards building up our cyber security resilience, as well as a digitised economy, as well as looking at the importance of the SME community and the importance of investing in those. From a global perspective, wireless technologies and security, we're seeing the Middle East as very prominent there. Europe is showing the way in terms of AI investments, the tens of billions that are being spent in AI overseas. We are sitting well down the ladder in terms of our investment in AI, which is why our concern is that we may end up becoming the consumer and having to buy AI intelligence instead of actually producing it ourselves. And the sad part there is we have significant expertise in this country, and what we don't want to do is see those shifting offshore, basically then coming back to us with finished goods that we end up procuring and consuming. So it's really important that we tap into our talents, and that's something the AIIA has been really pushing quite strongly on in terms of the investment in skills in this space. I hope I've answered your question.
Thanks, Ron. Another question: how do we address skills shortages in the sector?
Yeah, good question. I speak fairly regularly on the topic of the Uberization of education. I think what we're seeing is that there's between our tertiary colleges and TAFEs, and I'll say Melbourne Polytechnic here, and our universities, they certainly have a place, and we have relationships with some of the dual sector players in this space. But we're also seeing an investment in micro credentials and other forms of I guess programmatic approaches to developing our skills. But I also think that what we're seeing overseas as a trend is that organisations are now also creating their own academies and their own education processes, if you like, to get the skill sets that are very tailored to their environment. And we're seeing that particularly in these cyber security in the AI space. But there's no shortages of courses now being made available to the marketplace. And I'd encourage anyone who is considering an upskill or cross skill to look at the broad range of programs now available. And if you need more information, certainly come to the AIIA. But there's no shortage around on that, including Victorian government's upskill program, which we're a contributor for and a supporter of.
Great. I think we'll make this one the final question. There's a mismatch between ABS job codes and real world jobs. ABS is a few decades behind. So is it hard to capture the real data and tech related workforce? What can we do to make sure skills and education investment meets these new industries' needs?
Yeah, great question, and it's in fact a reality that there is a disconnect between what organisations are looking for in skills and what workforces what skills are available in the workforce. We are actually working on a couple of initiatives at the moment to try and build platforms where we know what where the skill shortages are and where the job opportunities are and what credentials are required to fill those. So the short answer is yes, you're right. There's an issue there. And working with our other association colleagues in the marketplace, we are looking to provide systems that in fact improve our ability for workers so employers and employees to actually find each other and create opportunities, because we know there's a shortage, but the better the data, the better the informed decisions we'll be able to make on making sure that we have a good level of employment in our industry and across the Australian economy.
Thank you,
question, Daryl.
Ron. Tyler, I was just going to say that last one that came in, I didn't get to see the whole question, but I think it was asking about where you can find more resources on digital grants or something. It might be worth asking that one, Tyler, to
Yep. Can you please advise where we can find further information about the digital stimulus packages that are in Victoria?
If you actually go to our AIIA site, there are many sites, and you have to do a bit of trolling. But if you go to the aiia.com.au and go to our news feeds, we have our press releases there of the various grants that are available and where you can actually find stimulus packages. Otherwise, drop us a note at ceo@aiia.com.au and I'll direct you to the right person. But certainly you are right. You do need a bit of trolling to find where stimulus packages are across the country, both federally and state. But hopefully we can help you with that.
Thanks very much, Ron. Brilliantly done. You've got us right back on time to the minute, I think. So brilliant work. Took a lot out of that in terms of the transformation that is happening, but what a wealth of opportunities that exists for this country, this state, and the people within it to be able to embrace this, to create a new opportunities out of this with the technologies that we have at our disposal. So thanks very much, Ron.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.